So I wanted to recap the week because it has been a busy week. We've been having back-to-back busy weeks, but there's been a lot of activity going on this time, and some of the things I actually talked about in our session last night. So forgive me if you were in here and you've already heard a little bit of it. I've got updates on it. But the other thing that happened is we had such a great session last night, and you know it's just gonna have to be one of those if you had to be there, because it wouldn't let me stick it in my stories once we finished, and it would let me send it to IGTV or download it, but then when I did, the sync isn't right. So it's like, and then I'm talking, you know what I'm saying? It's off, it's jumbled. Hey Orlando. And so it's not fit to post. So some of that I will repeat here to make sure people can get the information out, and I will give those updates as best I can. And then if we have time, take a few questions at the end. Okay, so first thing I wanted to talk about is the situation in our federal prison system. I don't know if you all know it, but as of May 13th, 2,820 inmates who are incarcerated have COVID, have coronavirus, and they've had hundreds who have died. And Senator Kamala Harris, who I'm just now hashtagging Black Woman Working, had from way back in March called on the head of the Bureau of Prisons to have a plan in place well before they were having any of these issues, but knowing that they would need to plan for it so that there would not be the kind of outbreak that has happened. And they supposedly came up with a system through Attorney General Barr where certain levels of inmates, nonviolent offenders who are in the correction system would be released, and they had certain protocols for that. But of course, I don't have to tell you, Paul Manafort, one of the president's cronies who was guilty of everything short of treason, was released earlier this week to spend the rest of his sentence. He's supposed to be on a 7-year sentence, and he's been released to spend the rest of it on home detention. I mean, they didn't even let him out until the outbreak subsides. His attorneys rightly requested, they're supposed to advocate for him. They requested his release, and it was granted, and granted permanently. So he's sitting someplace cushy while people who have committed nonviolent offenses are in vulnerable parts of the population, have pre-existing conditions or comorbidities that make them more susceptible to dying or being very, very ill if they were to contract the virus. They're left in those conditions, and many of them had been serving much longer than him, and he did not even fit the criteria that the Attorney General of the United States set, because they're supposed to be like either 2/3 of your sentence is already completed or certain other things that you have to do, and those were not met. So I just want to give you a little bit of the language from the letter, just to be thorough, that Senator Harris wrote. So she says, notwithstanding the early warnings, the Bureau of Prisons institutions have experienced shocking outbreaks nationwide. 2 facilities just in California have been especially hard hit, and there are hundreds of inmates elsewhere and staff who are being put in these dangerous conditions. So she's calling now for hearings for oversight of the Bureau of Prisons and for Attorney General Barr and for the director of the Bureau of Prisons and everyone to have to testify, and for there to be oversight of the way that they're going to proceed going forward. Because one name that I don't know if you all know this name, Andrea Circle Bear. I don't know if it's Andrea or Andrea Circle Bear, but this is the young woman who was pregnant and contracted COVID in the prison. She was transferred from Huntsville, I believe, to Fort Worth, which they weren't even supposed to be doing transfers because that makes you more at risk. She was transferred, and then she had gone 2 times to the medical unit complaining of trouble with the pregnancy, and then the next time they took her in, she had to be placed on a ventilator. She gave birth the next day, and she died the day after that. Now, that's just not supposed to happen. She was serving a 28-month sentence for drug offenses, nonviolent, but drug sale offenses. She was a member of the Sioux tribe. She was around by the Cheyenne River, and she was supposed to be there 28 months. And she has lost her life and given birth to a baby who's now being raised by family members. So we need you all to be active and to be writing your congressperson, as I always say, your senator, making sure that whatever it is that you can do in order to say that you care about this and to say that you want action taken and you want hearings, we need you to do that. The next thing, and again, gotta say, Senator Kamala Harris, Black woman working, is asking for FEMA and HHS to give an accurate count of the number in the United States who have died due to COVID. And the reason why that's important is because if we don't know the numbers who have actually had it and who have died because of it, then we will not know how many areas we are still susceptible and how high the danger is in those areas. And one of the things that she says in the letter is we saw this administration try to downplay and underestimate the number who had actually died when we dealt with the hurricane in Puerto Rico and all of the tragedy that came after that, and they're already starting to try to do the same thing here. So we want for there to be accurate estimates, and that's what FEMA is for. That's what Health and Human Services Secretary Azar is supposed to be for. So we need for those things to be done so that there can be an accurate reporting. If you didn't see it today, the CDC came out saying that they are predicting based on 12 different models, which is what they use. They use 12 different models and indicators. They're predicting that by June 1st, there will be 100,000 deaths in the United States by June 1st. And that is a staggering and tragic number. And it's certainly well beyond anything that any of us would have expected or thought possible in the United States. It's higher than any other country in the world, and they are expecting all of the numbers to increase. I'll find the exact information on that so I can give it to you if I have it. Yes, so this just came out at 10:35 in the morning. Let me make sure. Yes, 10:35 this morning. The CDC, and you can follow at CDC.gov. If you want to follow them on Twitter, I know they're on Instagram too. I don't know what it is on Instagram, but you can follow them and get the latest information. But it says the CDC tracks 12 different forecasting models of possible COVID-19 death in the United States. As of May 11th, all forecast an increase in deaths in the coming weeks and a cumulative total exceeding 100,000 by June 1st. And they have a chart showing what those numbers are. So you know what? My message to y'all is the same that has always been, fam, stay home. I don't care what your particular governor is doing, what kind of things they're releasing, what kind of things they're saying is okay to do. You know that Black people and brown people are at higher risk. We die more than anybody else who contracts this virus. This is not something that you can play with. This is not something that you can take a chance on. So we have to take care of ourselves. I mean, that really is what it is. It's community members. That's why I'm trying to come on here and bring you guys the information, and so many other people are trying to do the same thing. Yes, use wisdom. I see you saying that, but that means stay home. Let me be plain and clear with you, because it doesn't take but a small bit of interaction. So obviously, if you're going out, if you're in a public place, if you're closer than 6 feet to a person, you need to be wearing a mask. The mask is for their safety, and you need to be around people who are doing the same. Be careful. Wear gloves when you're going in grocery stores. Wash your hands. Do it for the full 20 seconds that they're telling you to. All of the things. Be careful with your packages that are coming in. Everything that you started doing when we first started having to stay in place in quarantine, we need to still be doing, because we're watching now the numbers going up from the states that used us as human guinea pigs and let people open up for the sake of a pedicure and a manicure and a bar. Did you guys see all those people in Wisconsin crowded into those bars? Do you know what their numbers are going to look like? Their numbers are already up, but can you imagine what it's going to be 2 weeks from now? Texas, my home state, one of those that loosened restrictions, had the highest single day total of deaths this week. Highest 3-day total of deaths since the beginning of COVID. That is recklessness. That's recklessness to the point of just intentional neglect, where people who are responsible for us as elected officials, the first job of a president of the United States or of a governor, because they are in that executive branch, is to keep citizens safe. They are supposed to make the kinds of decisions that make us safe. And just because people want to do something doesn't mean that they should. I want to drive down the road at 100 miles an hour. Really, I don't. But if I did, the reason why I can't is because it's not safe. Because it puts me at risk and it puts others at risk. So people acting like this is all so restrictive and so new. Okay, well, driver's license, got to be a certain age to buy liquor, got to be a certain age to buy tobacco, can only go over a certain speed limit, got to have your seatbelt on. There are rules and regulations. And if you don't follow them, then you're in trouble because you put others at risk. This is not any different than that. It is extreme because our country was slow to act. And that's the exact same reason why they're opening up. Y'all, they're serious about that stimulus money. They're not going to send you $1,500 and then not make it easy for you to go out and kill yourself spending it. They want the stimulus money to stimulate the economy. They don't care if you get your rent paid. They want you to spend it. Texas also, apparently, the Supreme Court this week has lifted a restriction on evictions. So people are out of work, still applying for funding. The government's just trying to do another, hopefully, set of funding. And now they're going to let people start being evicted again. This is inhumane and unacceptable. So all we can do is what we can do. And what we can do is make our voices heard with the people who want to be elected. And what we can do is make our voices heard with our family and friends, so that even if conditions are unsafe, we are doing our best to be safe. Okay, just tonight, the House of Representatives passed the HEROES Act. Before you get too excited, I'm going to tell you what the HEROES Act does, which is some trillion amount of dollars in next level of assistance where people need it the most. And I'll go ahead and back in my phone. My phone is my notes tonight, HEROES Act, what does it do? So it's got voting provisions in it because obviously COVID is still going to be around come November. So they're trying to do things to ensure vote by mail and to ensure the security of the voting system. It calls for the release of the most vulnerable from prisons and jails so that we don't have circumstances like the ones I discussed earlier with you. It's asking people to be protected from eviction so that what's happening in Texas right now can't happen, or about what's about to happen, and it's making COVID testing and treatment available regardless of immigration status. So they want testing to be free, obviously, but then they want for it to not be about you being worried because you're not here with correct paperwork that you can't get a test. And it's ridiculous, isn't it, you all, that we would not do the testing, because then those are the people who are going and working and interacting with everyone else, and they're scared to go in and get a test, and they're scared to get treatment. And that's another thing that they're trying to make sure people know. Please don't be afraid to take your children or yourself in to see a doctor if you need to see a doctor. They're doing all kinds of heightened procedures in hospitals and pediatrician wards and children's facilities and things like that, so that people can be treated. So if there's something going on with your child, they don't want you, because they're seeing now people who are just trying not to go to the hospital, not COVID related, but anything related, and and then someone gets sicker than they're supposed to. Then you got to call 911. Then EMS that's needed someplace else, those resources are being allocated to something that could have been avoided, right? So please, if you know that someone in your family is sick, make the best arrangement possible. If you can do a call in first, then call in. But if you can't call in, go in. Okay. Okay. And then I'm zipping right through May. We started May, I guess, last week, but I haven't had a chance to say May is Mental Health Month. And obviously people who didn't have any kind of mental health challenges might be having some now, because this is ridiculously stressful circumstance for everyone. And if you look back, maybe the second week of all the days, all the months run together. How long we've been at this, y'all? 60 days? I don't know, but maybe the second week. So if you go a few weeks back in my IG feed or on my Facebook feed, I did a segment talking about mental health challenges and talking about safety in the home and domestic abuse challenges, and listing resources there that people can use. And I just want to give another one that I think I kept in my phone for this purpose. Yes. So if you go to cdc.gov, there are resources, there are mental health resources available there, because obviously coronavirus is stressful itself, and then people are worried about their family members, they're worried about their income, they're worried about their employment, they're worried going to work, they're worried being out of work. I mean, the whole situation is just a heightened level of anxiety and stress. So there are numbers that you can call to talk those things through. And there are ways that you can get approved now, which is one of the things I talked about those weeks ago. You can get approved for teletherapy for your insurance, or through whatever, maybe government subsidized, or your Obamacare, or whatever it is you have. You can get approved, which you wouldn't have been able to do that without first an in-person visit. But since that's not something that they're trying to have you do now, you can do an original consultation without ever having to see the doctor in location, or whatever the specific term is that they called it. And so go to cdc.gov to get the information there. They've got tips for you: meditate, eat healthy, exercise regularly, things you already know. And then there's the disaster distress helpline. That's 800-985-5990. Or you can text Talk With Us to 66746. The other one that I want to go ahead and give now is the National Domestic Violence Hotline, because I recognize while we're saying stay home, stay home, stay home, for some people staying home is not the safest place for them to be. There are still resources available. There's help available. If you can't use the phone because it would be risky for you to do so, then you can text. Okay, but it's the National Domestic Violence Hotline, 800-799-7233. And if you go online there, don't worry about even the safety of looking the information up if you don't think that your internet is safe, because when they have it figured out where when you do that search, it reconnects tech is not me. I'm not a STEM girl. Want to be. Raising one, but I'm not. So when you go on there, it reroutes or something so that when you look in the search history, it won't show that that's where you were looking. So if you know of anybody who needs that information, please share it. And then last, which is just an additional resource. Let me see. And you can still find all of this at cdc.gov, but I just want to give you the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration has particular resources available. That's SAMHSA, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services. So Ben Crump is trying to call me because I'm going to give you an update about the case. And I was hoping, gosh, I hope he's not calling to say that he wants to go on live because I'm already on here and I don't know how to do that. But I do have an update. He sent me some recent information. So that was the next thing on my list. Sorry that I interrupted. Somebody wave at me and let me know that that it's still working. Hello, y'all still there? I hope so. So Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, right? SAMHSA. They've got disaster preparedness, response, and recovery. And so you can get information there, and there's a distress helpline there, and there's even a mobile app there. So there are lots of different resources that you can use. Okay, so that's it for May Mental Health Month. And then finally, second to the last thing, I've been talking to you all week about these cases. Justice for Breonna Taylor, justice for Ahmaud Arbery, justice for Pamela Turner, which is the case out of Texas that we discussed earlier this week, where it's the year anniversary of her death, and she got into some back and forth with a police officer, but she was unarmed, and he tased her, threw her to the ground, and then he claimed that she was trying to take his taser and that he was in danger because she was going to tase him. And he backed up and shot her, like let go of 8 rounds on her, and she died right there. And the new information that came out was that the type of taser that he had was a single discharge taser. So it would have been impossible, and he knew that it would be impossible for him to take the taser that he had already used on her and use it on himself. Like he'd have to get a cartridge out, and she'd have to know how to load the cartridge for any of that to happen. So for that reason, the attorney Crump and the other attorney who's working on the case with him out of Houston believes that this is a very, very solid, strong case of excessive force and wrongful death, and they want action taken. This officer still has not been arrested. There have been no charges. Okay, and so then where Breonna Taylor is concerned, I know you all probably have heard about that case. You know that the police officers in Louisville, were allegedly doing a no-knock warrant for someone who 4 hours earlier had already been detained. So they had suspect in custody. They still effectuated this warrant. The testimony of witnesses who are around and of the boyfriend who was inside with Breonna is that they did not knock, they did not announce themselves. They're narcs, so they were plain clothed, but as they're trying to get in, he thinks that they're in the middle of a break-in and has a weapon that he's licensed to carry, and he starts shooting. Just protection of home and protection of his girlfriend who's inside the home. At this point, they start unloading. I mean, I guess they had the place surrounded, and they started shooting through the apartment windows, and Breonna ended up losing her life. So what I asked Attorney Crump if there was any additional information that he wanted me to share, and he sent me a statement because apparently there's been some false information that's been going around. So, as I told you, they claimed that they had justification for this no-knock warrant, right? And you have to go through a special procedure in order to get this, in terms of going before the judge. And what the police were saying is that the reason that they should be able to do that is because Brianna was still receiving mail packages, suspected drugs for the suspect who they were trying to get, who she had dated, I guess, a year previously. I don't know what kind of friendly terms they were on or whatever, but they alleged that they had surveilled the place prior days or days beforehand, and that sometime recently that their suspect had come and picked up a package, and that they had enlisted postmaster's office or someone in verifying that in order to get the warrant. But apparently, according to this statement, Attorney Crump with co-counsel Sam Aguilar and Lenita Baker state that today, the Louisville Postal Inspector, Tony Gooden, asserted that the LMPD did not use his office to verify that a drug suspect delivered packages to Breonna Taylor's address, which directly contradicts what the police stated in the affidavit to secure a no-knock warrant for the home. So this reveals what they already knew, but now, the postal inspector is coming out and saying plainly, don't put me in your mess. Don't put me in it. No, you did not come to me to verify this. Does that mean that they didn't try to verify it some other way? Maybe. But what it means for sure is what they pled out in that affidavit, the things that they used to justify being able to get that specific type of warrant were not true. So, LMPD got some splaining to do. And like I said the other night, nothing like this happens with any line officers or detectives out in the field to effectuate a warrant. Don't believe that for a second. So if in a few days they come out with arrest for the shooter, arrest for someone else who facilitated, who was out there effectuating the arrest, that's not it. We want more than that. I agree with Senator Harris. The Department of Justice should be investigating that entire department. Of course, we've got Attorney General Barr, so how likely is that to happen? The line attorneys at the Department of Justice are still very good, but what will happen with Barr in charge, I'm not hopeful at all. Okay, I think that's all I have, except for that it's graduation time. There are so many graduations between last weekend and this weekend, and I just want to say, in the midst of these crazy, crazy circumstances, I know how disappointing this can be, whether it's law school, grad school, college, high school. I've got a daughter graduating from 8th grade, and it's still just as disappointing because she was looking forward to all of the pomp and circumstance that, happens when you graduate. But you know what? This is going to be a special class. So if anyone who is watching now, or if your family member is coming out under these times, then I just really believe that there's a very special call and assignment on your life, and that you are being pushed forward in order to be serious and do work, and that for whatever reason, even the very celebration of it in the traditional sense is being withheld. But at the same time, it's getting filled in other ways, right? How often would it be that you'll get the President of the United States, Barack Obama that is, who's still my president, to do a primetime address for all the graduates? Oprah Winfrey's going to do an address for the graduates. They're throwing virtual proms. D-Nice is doing all kinds of events. There are all kinds of things happening that I hope you will be able to find a way to take advantage of, even though it's not what you were looking forward to, we are all still very, 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 very proud of you. And I, of course, am especially proud of the 2020 graduating class, Howard University School of Law. HU, you know. Okay.